Ricardo Scofidio stands as one of the most quietly radical figures in contemporary architecture, a designer who helped reimagine not just buildings, but the relationship between cities, culture, and everyday life. Rick was born in New York City in 1935. His dad, Earl Marco Scofidio, was a Creole of Trinidadian and British descent. He was a baritone saxophonist in both Xavier Cugat and Paul Whiteman's jazz bands. He ultimately started his own group, Earl Marco and the Harmony Kings, a touring riverboat band. Mrs. Scofidio, a socialite, was a descendant of an enslaved family in the South. Rick came of age in a world where the built environment often reflected rigid social boundaries. He spent part of his early career in Croton-on-Hudson, New York, a setting whose contrast with the dense urbanity of the city sharpened his sensitivity to landscape, movement, and the ways people inhabit space. Those early experiences, urban and pastoral, constrained and expansive, would later echo throughout his work.
Well, at the time, although we were very fond of him and knew he was very imaginative and smart and ambitious, he was a young man with a wife and several children. There were more to come. And he was one of a number of young architects employed by the distinguished Croton architect Dick Stein, who were part of his firm as apprentices or fellow architects, but not partners. And we met the whole group. I think there were 4 of them. My late husband, Bill, who was a wannabe architect and remained interested in architecture from the time he was in college, where he discovered Frank Lloyd Wright and became an ardent follower and fan of Wright. We like to meet architects, especially young architects with new ideas. And these 4 young men became part of our neighbors here in Croton. But the one with whom we became really good friends was Rick. And he was special, you could tell. And a nice thing was that he liked the house Bill and I had designed and built with our own hands. He went on to get a few commissions. He designed the building for a photo lab in Hawthorne, and that was quite wonderful and unusual.
Scofidio trained as an architect but resisted the profession's traditional limits from the start. Rather than treating architecture as static form, he approached it as a cultural practice, one inseparable from art, performance, technology, politics, and the body. In the late 1970s, he, along with his future wife Elizabeth Diller, co-founded what would become Diller Scofidio plus Renfro, a studio that challenged the idea that architecture must begin and end with buildings. Their early work blurred boundaries between installation art, theater, and urban intervention, asking provocative questions about surveillance, consumption, media, and public space. That experimental ethos eventually reshaped cities on a global scale, from Lincoln Center to the Institute of Contemporary Art in Boston and the Broad in LA. But nowhere is this more evident than in New York City's High Line, the the once abandoned elevated rail line transformed into one of the most influential urban parks of the 21st century. Rather than erasing the past, Scofidio's vision embraced it, allowing wild grasses, industrial remnants, and carefully choreographed views to coexist. The High Line redefined how cities worldwide think about reuse, public space, and the poetry of infrastructure. From concert halls and museums to civic spaces and urban landscapes, Scofidio's work can now be seen across the globe. Yet even at its largest scale, his architecture retains an intimate quality, designed not just to be seen, but to be experienced, questioned, and felt. His projects invite people to slow down, look differently, and reconsider how power, culture, and beauty are embedded in the spaces they move through every day. Ricardo Scofidio's legacy is not only in iconic structures, but also in a profound shift in architectural thinking. He helped expand the field from the design of objects into one about the design of experiences, proving that architecture, at its best, is less about monuments and more about meaning.